Welcome back to another juicy episode. Speaking of juicy, see you on the other side. And I am the interviewer today. This is so bizarre.
How do you feel?
It's weird. It's not my place. So it's a little weird.
Do a good job.
I will do my best. And today we are talking to Christine.
Hi, I'm new
This
here.
is Christine and Tony, her fiance.
Hello.
And partner. Life partner. I don't know what else to say. Well, your fiance, your partner. If you've ever heard us talk about Tony, this is Tony.
I kind of hate saying fiance because we've been together for almost 7 years. We have businesses together. We have a kid together.
You're partners.
We are, but it's also weird to be like, this is my life partner.
I know. I was going to say that almost sounds like worse than fiance. Not
then
that worse or better.
But then it's like fiance, but we've been engaged for 6 years. So
yeah,
here we are.
Yeah.
That's why most of the time, if I'm talking to somebody that I don't know, I'll just call her my wife.
And I usually just call him my husband.
That's so easy. Mm-hmm. That's so easy.
And
the labels are like
right, and we live that life.
Yeah.
But there's just not the paper.
You're not gonna be like, this is my twin flame.
That's some shit you would say.
This is my soul connection. We were written in the stars. Actually, though, I think you were.
Where I checked.
You checked. Okay, so the reason we wanted to talk to you is because, well, first let's start at the beginning. Not of your life, but when I first came across Christine, the second time, like back 2 years ago, was it 2 years ago, year and a half ago, 2 years, when she did her first journey and she came home and she said to you, hey, so I met up with Leah and I think I'm going to do mushrooms. What were your thoughts on that?
My first reaction was, hold up, let's do a little research into this. And
Love that.
And I was like, I've heard of people, I know of people who did psychedelics and were never the same. Like they, did something to their brain and, never fully recovered from it. And kind of the same thing I think that a lot of people think about, having a bad trip or something like that. And I mean, like, cause Christine's always like that. She's just very open to, as you know, like, doing just about anything if she thinks it's going to help her.
She's an experimenter.
Yeah. And so she was just ready to jump in with both feet. And I was like, hold up, let's talk about this. And she had already made her mind up. It didn't matter at that point what I said.
Didn't matter what you said.
I don't think so.
Yeah. It's interesting because when I told my husband about it, he's just like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, didn't really, like, he was just like, I mean, if that's what you want to do, like, go for it. Like, but I've had, there's a lot of people that I've guided whose, like, husbands want to know more. And it makes a lot of sense to me that you would, like, want to know and that you were doing your research. But also what you said, like, I think what you said is still true, but in a different way. Like, you've known a lot of people who did it and they changed and they're not the same.
Well, I don't know. I don't really think I know people, or at the time I knew people that had
like personally
had done it for like growth, like to,
okay.
For,
I think they were doing psychedelics and a lot of other things and very recreationally.
Got it.
That's what he was around and saw.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and it was acid, really, I think is what it was. It wasn't even mushrooms.
I was literally just going to say, so I do this, I go on tangents, but my husband and I were talking about one of his friends from years ago. He was his roommate when we first met, and everybody is like, this guy's a weirdo. He talks to people. He like in his head, and they would joke that he always had something on his shoulder because if he would get too fucked up, he would just be having conversations with himself on his shoulder. And when we were in Cabo last week, Jason was like, I used to think he was super fucking weird. And I think the acid did that to him, but also he was always happy and he didn't give a fuck what people thought about him. And I think that was the acid. But we used to make fun of this guy because he did so much acid that it fucked with his brain a little bit.
Yeah.
But he's always happy. He's a good guy. Like, he's a weird, but I look at the way people talk about me now versus what I was 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm fucking weird.
Same.
Yeah.
You're weird. You're getting there.
Not that weird. Maybe a little weird.
You're weirder than you were.
I've definitely done a lot of stuff in the last couple of years that I never thought I would do. That's for sure.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because you're maybe a little bit of hesitation going in. You're obviously like, Christine's made her mind up. She's going to do this no matter what. Let me tell you where when we started this thing together, when we started talking back and forth, I was very in my head about what you thought about me.
Oh, really?
I told her this. I said, I was afraid that you thought that I was a bad influence. And I was like, he's going to hate me. He's going to hate me. Like, here I am, like, oh, well, now that you've done mushrooms, you should try this. But I was also like, I remember meeting you out at the pool one day. And I don't know. Maybe
that was
wrong,
when you guys were talking to the rice.
Yeah. But
that was
weird. You thought that was weird?
I still think that one's weird.
But I remember having a conversation with you, and I know my shit. Like, I'm like, no, this is the dose, and this is how often, and this is what you should do.
We were talking about mushrooms, yeah.
Yeah, because you were asking me all these questions, and I am curious. Like, what did you think of her hanging out or being friends with someone who probably was not someone she usually would have hung out with?
I mean, I didn't think that you were weird. I don't think I thought you were as nearly as weird as you think that I thought you were.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so I never thought that you were.
He probably thinks you're weirder
influence.
now. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I remember that, we knew each other at the gym, and then when we ran into you at
Simply Thai.
I didn't really see you close up, but I saw you, I think Christine went outside and talked to you.
Yeah.
And I did see you, and I thought you looked a lot different, just better.
Yeah.
And then when Christine ran into you after the gym closed, I think that I'd kept telling her when the gym was open that new doors would open when she closed the gym. And I kept saying it over and over again, because she was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what my life is supposed to be. And I just kept saying, you don't know, because this is where you're at right now. And once you close it, then new opportunities, new doors are going to open. And it's something that you've never even thought about that will, come to you. You remember me saying that?
Yeah. I got something in both of my eyes.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
Not crying,
So it sounds like you kind of knew what you're talking about, because we know that you're older than her. You don't look older than her, by the way, and you don't look older either, Christine. Get my foot out of my mouth real quick. But you've lived more life, and so you've had these things happen to you where, like, you've watched something fall apart, and you've gone to something better. And Christine, technically, it's happened with you, like with your divorce, and then finding that, like, in the middle of that divorce, like, you probably didn't think like you were ever gonna find something better.
We talk about
have a better life.
We talk about psychedelics being the wild, wild west. Online dating, that shit is wild.
You both had to do that for a while.
We did.
Oh my god.
Yeah, but what's funny is he remembers me from Bumble.
What?
But I swiped.
I think you remember me from Bumble.
Whatever. I swiped no to him.
She
then
literally
we
could go
actually
into my Facebook profile. She could do it right now and tell you every picture that I had on Bumble.
You also know that I'm super good with faces. But we met in person. Yes.
Wow. So you're this person telling her, you're like, just because this fell apart, like, it doesn't mean like this is going to be like this forever. Something else is going to happen for you.
Yeah, because I was in a similar experience. I mean, I had a business that I closed in 2012 and filed bankruptcy and was kind of at rock bottom. And
oh wow!
So I knew that other doors were going to open, and I felt like for her it was going to be even more so, because she has so many contacts and people are really so drawn to her. And I just felt like that with all the people that she knew that had come through the gym and that had been through 9 Round, which she was at before she started Six Packs, that that people probably had ideas for her that they had never even talked to her about because she was the owner of Six
She was
Packs
tied
Fitness.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I say that a lot to people. It's really hard to like let things go, but sometimes when you let something go, that's when like the other stuff, it's almost like a test. And I don't know if you talk this way, but I say it's from the universe all the time. But it's almost like a test from the universe saying like, oh, we have more for you, but we need you to let go of something first. You know?
Yeah.
And sometimes when you can't let go, like it's almost like a giant like shove out the window. Like you're not gonna let go of this. We're gonna force you to let go. You know?
And I totally will own I really struggle with letting go with things because I wanted to be a really hard worker and I didn't want to let other people down and I didn't want to be seen as like a quitter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I was trying to talk her into closing the gym a couple years before. I mean, you know,
And you and I have had lots of talks like that.
Even before COVID, you know, she was stressed out by it, and I was just like, you know, like it's not worth it. You know, if you're not happy doing this and it's not giving you what you want, then do something else. And she was like, no, I don't want to be a failure. And I was like, you're not a failure. Like you built a business that, you know, had hundreds of members and changed people's lives. And, you know, there's no failure in that. It's just finding out, you know, more about yourself.
You're like a really good, like you could be like a mindset coach.
I've done a lot of mindset, like
business oriented,
I'm very big on mindset. Mindset is probably something that I think about on a regular basis, and I talk about it on a regular basis too.
So we need to set up a dinner, double date, because I try to do this whole mindset thing with my husband, and it's like it doesn't come as easy for him. And I was like, well, of course you're going to fail because you keep saying you're going to fail.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
like it's that simple. It's
right.
that simple. Like if you're sitting here telling yourself you're not good enough, then you're never going to be good enough.
Right.
And that's not like manifesting woo-woo shit. Like that's mindset.
Right. And I think that you can manifest those things too. Like, and it's
100%.
And it's not necessarily a woo-woo thing, but I do think that you manifest those things by the way that you look in yourself and the way that it makes you react in situations. And, you know, like one of the things that I remember telling Christine when COVID hit, and I was like, you know, there's something good here. You just haven't found it yet. And I was like, you know, we just have to find the positive that is in this. And, you know, one of the positives that came out of it was that, you know, she was able to change the business and start doing personal training. And, you know, they had the PPA loans that came out, and those really helped, you know, her to, you know, to stay in business because she thought she was done because the gym was closed for what, 3 months. And so, you know, so it was just like, okay, you know, this happened. Now we need to find like, what's the other side of it?
Yeah.
And, you know, and I think we did. And I think that she did a great job of, you know, keeping that business going for through the pandemic and struggling through all that, and changed the model of the business because it went from, I mean, I think that she had about 150 members, you know, paying anywhere from $80 to $150 a month for their memberships, to 6 months later, because you know, everybody was on contract, and so they kept paying. But every time they would renew, they would drop. And 6 months later, I think there were probably 40 people that had memberships. And then she hung on for, you know, a full like year and a half after the pandemic started.
I know.
and only stopped really because
it was killing her.
It was killing her, but that was, you know, you want to talk about the universe. So she was having all these reactions to her body. She had a UTI for almost a year, and
like the rashes and everything.
Then she started getting those rashes. That was like, I think that started around Thanksgiving. She was getting these rashes, and we ended up going to the emergency room Thanksgiving night, I think, wasn't it? Yeah. And, you know, so then she was going to see another doctor who was more of like, he wasn't really holistic, but he was not a traditional, like, takes insurance type of medicine. He gave, you know, like peptides and things like that he would, you know, try to treat things with besides just giving an antibiotic.
Wow.
And So she was walking out of that doctor's office. Well, we had been in Florida. We had just bought the first house in Florida. We went down there. That was like the first week of December. We were setting that house up, and then while we were down there, the rashes went away. And then she came back to the gym, and the rashes came back almost immediately as soon as she walked into the gym. And,
It's almost like, listen, bitch.
yeah.
We're telling you what this is. We need you to listen.
And so when we were in Florida the first time, she was having a conversation with, or she was going to talk to the owner of the building. And I told her, because the lease was up the following September. So it was like 9 or 10 months later, I guess. And I said, just talk to him and tell him that we're not going to renew the lease, and tell him that if he wants to start marketing it, that he can, and that you'll leave whenever he wants you to, because she was, at that point, she was just going to hang on until her lease was up. And so she told him that, and then we came back home. She had a doctor's appointment. While we were in the doctor's appointment, he called. And I was like, and she was like, she looked at the phone, she was like, it's Reza, the building owner. And I was like, well, it's not going to be anything bad. Like, talk to him. So we got out to the car, and I don't remember if you called him back or if he had left a voicemail.
I called him back.
And I was there, like, listening. Because with him, he loved Christine and he hated me. So we played that up. We played the good cop, bad cop. So, like, I would handle all of the, like, negotiating type things. And if there was any kind of, like, difficult conversation, I would have that with him. And then she was always...
That was Jason with me in the business. I never did those things.
And so he told her when he called her, oh, and when we were in the doctor's office, they were like, you need to take a month off of work. So they were like, no matter what you do, you need to take a break. And so she was prepared to step away from the gym for that. And then he had called and he said, and this was like December 14th, I think. And he was like, if you want out of the lease, I'll let you out. You have to be out by the end of the month. And so we had like 2 weeks to close that gym down.
But I got COVID.
And we were still finishing the house. So we had to make another trip back to Florida to finish setting the house up, because we had a guest coming in like a couple weeks. And so we flew back down to Florida, finished setting it up, got the pictures taken and everything. And then rashes went away. And then we came back. Rashes came back. And we closed the gym down. And then it was Christmas Eve. She was not feeling well. We were going to close the gym on December 26th. It was like a Monday. That was going to be the final class. She was going to do like a goodbye thing, have everybody come in. And it was December 23rd. We always get together with my family on the 24th on Christmas Eve. And so I was like, go get a COVID test, because she wasn't feeling well. And I was like, just go get a COVID test just to check. And she was like, I don't have COVID. And I was like, well, yeah, but we're going to be around, family members and stuff. So just check it. She had COVID. So Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, we're in quarantine by ourselves. And then on the 26th, I still didn't have it. And so I went, and we didn't have that final class, and I just closed the gym up. We had movers that came in, and I worked I worked on Sunday. I guess Christmas Day I went out there and worked because I couldn't do anything else, taking stuff apart.
Oh my God.
On the 26th, we finished. I had some movers come in. They moved stuff into storage. And I got home that night, and I wasn't feeling well. And then I just thought I was tired because I'd been working so much, and then I had COVID.
And you got COVID. Okay, universe.
But yeah, so that's how the gym closed, and it was that fast. But it was, literally the doctor said, you need to take 30 days off. This is obviously causing something. We walked out, and she talked to the landlord, and he said, you have 2 weeks to close the gym.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, would you have made that decision had he not called and given you an out?
No, because she didn't want to be seen as a quitter or failing. So she was going to see.
It's almost like, this is your opportunity right here. We're handing it to you. Like, please make the right choice.
I was more willing to kill myself
Than let anybody
than
down.
to let someone else down. I would let myself down over and over and over and over again.
Okay, so I want to get into, I've thought about this a lot because, I got a lot of women and some of them are married, and something that always happens after a trip is there comes a point where it is the woman saying to the man, evolve or get left behind. I'm doing all this work and I need you to step it up.
Yeah.
And this isn't in your case. This isn't particular to my case. It's almost every person that I guide this happens to. And it's almost like it needs to come with a warning label. Like, I'm not saying you're going to get divorced after you do this, but I'm saying, like, you're going to need a partner who's also willing to do the work. And sometimes that looks different than what you thought doing the work looked like. So, it's funny because, like, there's a lot of parallels in our world. And Christine and I have this, like, super traumatic, chaotic childhood, lots of, like, issues that are, like, obvious if you, like, sat down and asked about our life stories. And then you and my husband, like, you didn't look like you had it so bad. So I'm not putting this on you, but I think for our relationship, he was like, well, you're the one with the issues because you're the one who's depressed and you're the one with anxiety and you're the one who had the fucked up childhood. So I'm fine. And about 6 months after my mushroom trip, I'm like, nah, motherfucker. Like, you're not fine. You got some work to do. I'm holding up my end. Like, I need you to step up or we're getting a divorce.
Yeah.
And I want to know how that happened for you because Jason did his first mushroom journey close to a year after my first one. And what made you decide to do it and why? Let me back up a little bit. What did you see different in Christine before you did your mushroom journey?
Yeah. And we had some of those kinds of conversations. I don't think Christine was ever like, she was always like, I want you to do it. You don't have to do it.
Yeah.
But I think that you would get a lot out of it. And I actually said something similar to her at one point about, my trauma not being as bad as her trauma, or, I didn't have, like, I may have even said I didn't have trauma.
Yeah, I remember. So,
she seems to, like, remember a lot. How's that work for you?
Yeah. But, the change that I saw in her, and it started when she closed the gym. Well, I guess she did the mushroom journey like 2 months.
Yeah, not that long after.
But even after she closed it, there was still just like a weight had been lifted off of her. She still was having a lot of anxiety. That was, I think, her main thing that we all saw, or that I saw, was her anxiety. That it was over the last 3 years had really gotten, pretty bad.
Like debilitating?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say debilitating, but it was close.
I had
panic attacks.
In the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's hard. It's hard to be with something like when you're seeing somebody have a panic attack because, there's really not much you can do.
No.
And, and so like we would wake up in the middle of the night. She would just be sitting up. She might not even wake me up. A lot of times she wouldn't wake me up, but if I did wake up, I would see it. And then, would try to have her breathe or whatever to, get through it. But that had gotten progressively worse over, a few years. And then after she did the journey, it was, and I would say the other thing is that she had a lot of anger in her.
Yeah.
And we used to jokingly say she ran hot.
Yeah. I think she can still run hot.
Yeah, she still does. It's more of a simmer.
It's like a lukewarm.
But yeah, she just had like this anger in her, and it would come out in a lot of different ways. But between that and a lot of the anger, I didn't necessarily know at the time like where it was coming from, or that it was even, like not just how she was, like, you just think, oh, that's just how a person is. And
Did you really even know at that point, like, where it was coming from?
I mean, I knew I had
Right.
daddy issues, and I
Yeah.
had wounds there, and I would use a lot of times a lot of humor about those specific situations, which would make everyone else feel incredibly uncomfortable. But then in moments when it was like a trigger or reaction, it would come out as anger for sure.
Yeah. So when she did the journey, it was again like just this cloud lifted off of her. I mean, she was so different, and she was not like, she wasn't angry really anymore. Her anxiety it went virtually non-existent. I mean, I think she still has times where she gets anxious or feels anxious, but it's rare that it happens, now post journey. And so I saw that change, and she just seemed more relaxed and happier, and so I saw that change, and I think a lot of us saw that change, even our friends. The one friend that kind of coined the phrase that she runs hot is the one that also came up with the new one, that she's more of a medium simmer now than she is hot. But yeah, no, it was a pretty dramatic change that that I saw in it, and it had I think it had a big benefit to our relationship too, and that it was we were able to have, I think, more productive, like when we fought, like it was more productive. It wasn't just like anger and and then me getting angry because she's angry and I don't understand why she's angry, and then nothing ends up, it just ends up being a fight about nothing kind of thing.
Right.
And so I think that it helped our relationship in that way too.
Yeah. So and I don't mean to like get into, the trauma. I know the trauma of what happened, but you grew up with two parents who loved you, and very different situation.
Yeah.
But you lost both of them.
Yeah.
And so while your childhood maybe wasn't traumatic, like that's still something very traumatic for someone to go through, and for someone to have to watch as an adult, especially. So, is that something that you ever considered before doing a journey? Like, did you ever think that maybe that was something that you needed to work through or work through in a different way? Or did you think that you had done that?
I think that I had kind of done that, or I thought I had kind of done. I still think that I had. So my mom died. So was it 2012? So 11 years ago, she died of Huntington's disease. It's a degenerative brain disease, kind of like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. It's kind of like all the worst of all those diseases kind of piled into one. And so she had been sick for a long time. She was in a nursing home for 8 years. And so you kind of watch this person just deteriorate slowly over time. I think that when she was diagnosed, I was probably 22 at the time. And, so it's drawn out, and it's different with that, because with that disease, it's hereditary. So you have a 50% chance of getting it. So I'm 22. I know that my mom's sick, and now I'm thinking, all of a sudden I am too. And so it's like you start thinking, okay, I've only got 12 years to, live my life. And I think that that's where my mindset thing kind of really started, because I thought, again, there's nothing you can do about it. And so it's like, what's the lesson you can learn with that? And, the lesson is that life is short, and you don't waste opportunities. if you want to do something, do it, because you may not have an opportunity to do it the next day or the next year. So, for me, shortly after that, I was working at UPS. I had I think what most people thought was a great job. I started out of high school working at UPS and was promoted, moved into a full-time management position. And, and I was 25 years old and I was working in a cube. And, if people that start working out there at the hub, I don't know how many of them actually get into a full-time position, because at the time they used to only promote people from within.
Yeah.
So you couldn't just really, you could, it was just very difficult to get hired in from the outside. And, but it was probably like, less than, it was a fraction of a percent of people that got to the position where I was at, from all the people that start, as part-time people working nights. So, but, I wasn't really crazy about it. I kind of wanted to own my own business and do something on my own. And in my mind, I'm thinking, like in 10 years, I might not be able to do this. So like, now's the time to do it. So why live your life doing something that you don't want to do? So I quit and I started up a business.
Wow.
And I don't think that I would have done that if it wasn't for Huntington's disease. And so that's always kind of been in the back of my mind. It's like, like there's a silver lining to it in a way, because it has allowed me over my life, I think, to not stay in situations where I wasn't really happy for too long.
Yeah.
And, in a way, when I got divorced, which was 8 years ago, I guess now, that was in my mind there too, because I'm like 40 years old and, it's like, again, like you don't know how much time you have left, and is this really how you want to spend what days you have left in a relationship that's not, satisfying you. It's not, it's not growing, it's not evolving. And so, it's like, why continue to live something that you don't want to live? And so, so that's, but anyway, I guess back to the trauma. That was my initial trauma. And then my mom died in 2012. And then my dad passed away in 2016. He had cancer. And we found out in, I guess it was 2015 that he had it. Had a really rough year of, having, he had his bladder removed, he had chemotherapy, and, and then eventually, I think it was about a year and a half, almost 2 years, I guess, he lived. And then he passed away. And then the next year is when I got divorced. I also, in 2012, the same year, it was the same year my mom died, was the year that I closed that business that I'd started and filed bankruptcy. So in like a 4-year period of time, I had, closed business, bankruptcy, mom died, dad died, got divorced.
It's like loss after loss after loss after loss.
Yeah. And, in the middle of all that, again, mindset thing, 2012, I wasn't, my mom just died. I wasn't really happy. I was working at Honeywell now in this, this office that I literally used to have nightmares about, because when I had Digital Lifestyles, we did contract work for Honeywell. And I literally went into the office one time to pick up some blueprints and was like, this is the most miserable office that I've ever been in. It was like,
before you even worked there.
Yeah, before I worked there. Have you ever seen Joe versus the Volcanoes?
It's been a long time.
There's a scene in that movie, and I just actually thought about this. There's a scene in that movie where they're like in an office in the beginning, and it's like the lights are flickering. It's got like the old fluorescent lights, and they're like humming,
like
and
almost
flickering.
Like comical.
Yes,
like worst work setting ever.
This office building was in the industrial park, and it was on the second floor of what is essentially a warehouse, and it was awful. And I literally had like this vision in my head of having to work in that office and how terrible that it must be. And it went from that to, closing the business, filing bankruptcy, and then being unemployed for a few months and not knowing like what was going to happen. I thought I was going to lose my house, and applying for jobs, not getting anything back, and then I ended up reaching out to somebody that I had known at Honeywell that we didn't work for, and they hired me.
Damn.
So yeah, so I was so a year later, I'm still not happy. Like, you know, I remember thinking to myself again, you know, I guess I could do something about my career situation, but you know, that's not going to be a quick change or anything, you know, that, and my mom just died. I'm not happy with my marriage, and I just didn't feel good. And then I was thinking, you know, when was the last time that I actually felt good? And that was back in like 2008 or 2009. I had lost weight, and so I thought, you know, like that's one thing you can easily control. You can control yourself. You can control if you eat healthy. You control if you go to the gym. Like that's 100% within your control. And I was like, that's something that I'm in control of. And that was when I was the happiest that I remember, was whenever I was active and, you know, working on myself. And I was like, I'm going to start doing that again. And I went back to the gym, and over the period of probably 9 months, I mean, I lost like 60 pounds.
Jesus.
Yeah. And I think that really started, you know, it changed a lot of things about, it made me feel better. It made me feel more confident. And I think it set my life into a different direction at that point.
Hold. I'm about to pee my pants.
Damn it.
Sorry.
Pause.
I didn't know y'all took bathroom breaks.
She usually doesn't. She's done it a few times. I didn't know any of that.
Really?
This is fascinating. Especially the mindset stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I think sometimes it takes... Okay, I was asking my 15-year-old in the car yesterday, like, what he would do if he had a year left to live. Like, that type of stuff, like, I ask questions like that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, would you still love me if I was a worm?
Yeah, I've been asked questions.
But I asked him that, and he's like, well, I don't know. And then I start going into what I would do. And I think that when you're faced with that reality,
Yeah.
like, you really do have it's almost like you're forced to have a different mindset, because you can either sit in that, well, this is my life now, and I'm just going to live it out and be miserable and sad and, you know, depressed, and, you know, I could die any day. But then you look at the other side of that and you're like, or
Right.
I could live every day like it's my last.
Right.
I could make these choices that will make a difference in my life. Yeah. Like, you already went through like such a transformational journey. I didn't.
Yeah. And I continue to do it. I mean, you know, even, you know, when I left Honeywell this year, you know, that was me getting in my mind of like, you know, why am I doing this? I'm like, what am I getting out of this at this point?
So even though, and this is just like a human thing, like, you know, that you can let something go, and it's worked for you so many times, but it's still possible to sometimes get stuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Happens often.
And I think that most people would probably look at me, people that know me. Yeah, I would be curious to see, like, I don't actually know what my closest friends actually think of me, but I know that they think that I'm a little crazy. Like, but yeah, I mean, you know, I've gotten stuck in situations, and, you know, and Christine, even, like, when we were talking last week, I think, and she said that I have a tendency to get stuck in situations, and I, you know, and I do, but I think that part of it is that just my process of going through, and like, I'm not going to make like quick decisions typically.
Yeah.
Like, I will make big changes.
Yeah.
Like, massive changes.
Yeah. Like, quit your career.
Right.
Get a divorce.
But it's not going to be something that I'm going to do on a whim. You
Yeah.
know, like I'm going to sit on it. And I always like to let my subconscious kind of sit on things. And like, if there's like a big decision that's coming up that I need to make, a lot of times I don't even know that I do this intentionally, but I won't make it. And then I'll wait and see if it comes back up again. And then if it comes back up again, then it's like, okay, now maybe this is important and I need to think more about it. And I still might not even make a decision, and I'll wait to see if it comes back up. And then if it comes, and then make the decision. But,
I love that.
yeah.
You're kind of more spiritual than I thought you were. But you probably see it in a
I
different
don't.
way.
Yeah, I don't think he thinks that he is, but he is.
I think you probably, like, you logic it. Like, you turn it into logic. But I feel like that. It drives Jason crazy because I'm like, it'll work out. It always does.
It will. Yeah.
It
absolutely.
always does.
I've told
And if you
Christine
believe
that,
it's going to work out, it will work out. And the same thing with, like, decisions. I'm like, if it's for me, it will come back.
Right.
If it's not, then it's going to keep going.
Right.
And I'm not missing anything. If I'm like stressing out about making the right decision, I'm not missing it by not making a decision right away. It'll come back around.
Right. But I think that you have to have that openness to
Yeah.
realize when it's coming back, and you have to realize that, like, when it's time to actually make that change.
See, I call those signs.
Yeah.
I'm like, the microwave says 11:11 and you just called me. It's a sign.
But I don't think it even matters what you call it.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. That's the good thing about it. Like, you can call it whatever you want.
Right.
If it's like your belief
the
system,
same
then
message. It's the
Same
same
thing.
mentality.
yeah.
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 But like, I remember, like, telling myself, like, when I went through bankruptcy, and I was literally telling myself, like, this is going to be the best thing that's ever happened to me.
And it was.
And that was at the time when I was like, I was at my bottom, but I knew I was at my bottom, and I was saying, like, this is going to open up a new chapter, and you just have to be open to that new chapter. And like, I would tell myself that, and I told my family, I was like, this is going to be the best thing. Like, it, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the next thing is going to be.
Do you feel like they thought you were a little delulu?
Probably.
Yeah. It's a very weird, I think that people think that about the way that I look at life, is that, like, I'm delusional.
Yeah. Well,
Really?
I would tell Christine that when she had the gym, and I would be like, look, like, this isn't who you are. You're not this gym. Like, whatever it is that happens, this is just a stepping stone to get you to where it is that, you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
There's no failure in it.
I was telling him when you were in the bathroom, like, I was like, I didn't know any of this stuff. And to think that, like, when you're faced with, like, a life or death situation, you kind of have to, like, you either make a conscious choice to live in the now, or a conscious choice to live in the low part of it. And a lot of times people don't get to that because they're not faced with this life or death situation. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing that, like, pushes people into this, now what are you going to do?
Right.
It pushes you into the other side, or you get stuck in the same place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he kind of already went through this, like, heroic journey. I'm very into, like, heroic journeys right now, the hero's journey.
The hero's journey.
So you've already done that before mushrooms.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Before
just,
we even met.
before you even met. It's just, so no wonder you were, like, already, like, such a good guy. Not that you were ever bad, but it's just like, okay,
No, but I am
this
a
makes
much
a lot
better
of
person
sense.
now than I used to be. That's for sure. I've had a lot of growth over the last 10 years, 12 years.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So the mushrooms for you weren't, like, the life-changing thing, but they were another journey.
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
It's like bam, bam, bam.
And the thing about, like, I'm not a spiritual person, or I wasn't a spiritual person. The mushrooms for me were they just opened me up more, I think.
Yeah.
And my journey was a spiritual journey, I guess, in a way, but it wasn't, like, spiritual in, like, necessarily, like, people that have passed in my life coming back and talking to me, or like God talking to me, or anything like that. But it was very spiritual in, like, there was a lot in it about my mom, and then and in the universe, which I think but after my journey, my thoughts on it are that the universe is what people are trying to explain with Christianity, but it's not Christianity. It's just the universe and how the universe works.
I absolutely fucking agree with that.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of stuff that gets taken out of context, and it's like, this is black and white, and when you really know like the meaning behind it, you're like, no, this is just it's just something that you can read and you can use it as a tool, and it's not black and white and it's not a rule, but like it's a really good lesson.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. So your journey, I think you did it the same day Christine saw her ancestors for the first time.
Oh yeah.
100%. Yeah.
So what did you think?
So I was, the day that we did it, I mean, I was really scared. And leading up to it, I'd done a fair amount of mushrooms leading up to it, because over the last, so I guess that was about a year after you did yours, right? So
Yeah.
So over that year, we had microdosed quite a bit, and we did like 2 grams a couple times, and really not much. I've never really had much, there's not been much impact on me when I've done.
But I think when we did 2 grams, we were not in the right place.
Yeah. Well, but I did.
So not a lot of introspection. Like it wasn't really like.
Yeah, and there
the
wasn't
set or the setting for that type of
hallucinations
experience.
wasn't happening. I didn't feel like I was anything. I didn't feel any different than what I normally would.
Damn.
And the only thing I remember about that one was when I went to the bathroom, and I did see the toilet paper in the toilet was like I could see it moving, and it wasn't moving, but that was it.
Okay, so you saw a little wooey.
Yeah,
a little bit.
But anyway, so we had done, had some experiences with it before, but I was scared to do 5 grams.
Why do you think people are afraid? Why were you afraid to do it?
I mean, I didn't know what I was going to see. I didn't know how I was going to react to it. I didn't, I guess those were the main things.
I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of. Because I think we say a lot of times, like, it shows you your shit. And sometimes I'm like, well, if it's your shit, why are you afraid to look at it?
Yeah.
Like, you know it's there.
Yeah, and that was the other thing of, not knowing, what shit it's going to show you.
Right. There's some shit in there that I don't want to see. Right. Yeah. So I think that's a lot of people are afraid. And another thing, I want to bring this up because you've done it now, but I remember at one point you said you were afraid you were going to quit your job. And then you quit your job.
Well, we said that, I said that to Henry.
To Henry.
And Henry was the first interview we had ever
You're
had.
right. You're right.
And I remember what he said.
What did he
said,
say?
it sounds like he's already made up his mind.
So, and I do tell some people will come to me and say, like, what if I want to divorce my husband? And I'm like, do you want to divorce your husband?
Right.
It might give you some clarity.
Yeah. I've sat with people and just that happened.
Literally. So it's not going to make you do anything that's not already in your subconscious or something that you've thought about before. Like, it's not like, that's wild.
And as it happened, I had, right before I did my journey, I had decided to quit my job. And that was another mindset thing. But I had decided it, but then part of my motivation of doing the journey was to let that be part of it, to see what would come out of that. And I didn't know if it would, change my mind and make me think not to. I mean, actually, it was maybe the opposite. When I actually did it, I thought it might tell me that I should not quit my job. Or, I didn't know.
Like you needed just a little bit more clarity.
But I thought maybe that would give me some more clarity. And so, but I don't know. Let's,
I was just asking about what you were afraid of.
Okay.
Yeah. So you answered that, but so what did it end up? I think to what you were saying, like what a lot of people are afraid. I think we've said this before. My husband was afraid he was going to end up like me because I got weird and I got woo-woo and I got like super into the universe and shit. And I think a lot of people, we've said this before, there are some people on Instagram and TikTok who are very open about their psychedelic use, and they're very hippie, don't care what people think. They're just unapologetically themselves. But because those are the type of people who are open about it, people look at that and they're like, well, I don't want to turn into that.
Yeah.
And we have to remind, like, you won't. That's just who they are.
Well, what's funny is and I would also say that before Christine meeting you, like I was never like a plant medicine person at all. Like I've never really liked weed. You know, I did it a fair amount like in college, and I've done it a few times, you know, since then, but I've never really loved it. And I'd prefer to drink than to do marijuana. But it's so like even the mushrooms, and then before that we had done MDMA. So
that was before your mushroom
before
trip.
the mushroom journey. We did MDMA, and a couple times, I guess, probably 3 times before.
That's your favorite?
Mushroom journey. Yeah, it kind of is.
It's our favorite too. Like if I had to choose a favorite, like we've said this 100 times, like that one's our favorite.
Right, because it's just it's fun, it's easy, and it's love.
But it's also like as good as it is for like one person alone, like for a couple, it's like the most insane,
The best.
Yeah.
connecting,
It's the best.
like healing experience when you're doing it intentionally. And I don't know if you can do that like not intentionally, like, but you know what I mean? Like if I'm doing that with a stranger, it's probably not going to be the same as if I'm doing it with someone that I'm like in a relationship with.
Because
you know?
it's deeper.
It goes much deeper than that. Yeah. But yeah, that's like our favorite. But for me personally, mushrooms are my favorite.
Yeah.
But for anniversaries, birthdays,
Oh yeah.
date night, I mean, I'm making it sound like we do it that often. We really don't. Like every few months is like our gig. But
We're every
so you okay?
3 months.
Okay, so let me go back to this because you did this before you ever did mushrooms, and you were never a plant medicine or
Nothing.
like psychedelic person.
I'd never done any drugs other than.
So what did it take for you to like be open to doing MDMA? I kind of feel like I know the answer, but
you know, I guess Christine had talked about, you know, how, and I've heard you talk about doing it. And I'm actually trying to think like, because I was kind of scared to do that for the first time too, because I had no idea like what that was going to do. But I had also taken like the 2 grams of mushrooms before we did that. So,
and you were like, oh, this isn't what I thought.
yeah. And so when I did the MDMA, I kind of thought that it was going to be more psychedelic, I guess, than what, you know, it was. But I don't really know. Do you know what was like
The deciding factor?
I mean, I think that we had just been talking about it, and you know, you knew that Leah has like really loves it and talked about how great it is.
I think the winning point for everyone is like you will have the best sex of your life.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have sex.
Yeah.
And that's hard to explain. That's so hard to explain to someone. But it was just, I think for women, they hear like, oh, we're going to connect like deeper. Yes. And then for the, not saying you, but a lot of men are like, the sex is going to be even better. And like, you're going to be more experimental. Yes. You know?
Yeah.
And then you do it and then it ends up being both. And then you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I guess it probably it didn't hurt. That's for sure. But you know, we have a great sex life without MDMA. So
You do.
and so we've.
I'm saying that as a fact. But I think it's so that's what I mean too. I'm like, it's not even really about the sex anymore when we do it.
No, it's not.
It's not.
No, when we now, especially, it's more of just like, you know, like I think it's it gives you a chance to reflect and see things, you know, in just like, especially in the other person's viewpoint.
Yeah.
Understand where they're coming from more. You know, I know that that I would say that Christine would agree with that. That, you know, that I'm much more in tune with, you know, and don't get, neither one of us get emotional. I think one of our faults is that we both, you know, are emotional people, and so like when we have a disagreement, you know, a lot of times it's not real productive. Whereas when you have that conversation, or that you could have that same disagreement on MDMA, and it's just not going to escalate, you know.
I think it creates safety.
Yeah.
Like I've never done it in like a therapeutic setting, but I would be interested to see how that's different than when you're doing it at home with someone you love. I was gonna save this. No, I'll save it. No, I'll save it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. Well, no, okay. So we just did MDMA last week in Cabo, and had a really I wouldn't say it's a difficult conversation, but we had this conversation and it was just so easy to have. And the next day, literally at breakfast, I was like, you know what's weird is I used to want to do MDMA so we could have those conversations and it didn't seem hard, but I feel like it wasn't that hard to have that, and I would have that conversation with you at breakfast right now, and I would have had it before we did MDMA last night. Like it's almost like creates a safety net for these difficult conversations because you're not hearing it as an attack, but it almost worked as like a practice. And he said the same thing. He was like, you know, I was thinking that like
Really?
while we were talking about it, I was thinking, I bet we would still have the same conversation, not on MDMA. So it's almost like it's working that part of your brain. It's like a muscle that you haven't worked out in a while. And the more you do it and the more you have these really difficult conversations, the easier it is when you're not on the drug.
Yeah.
Would
I've
you
never
agree?
thought about that before.
You have? Oh, you have or you haven't?
Haven't. No.
Haven't. Yeah. I don't know. That's
That
my
makes
take on
sense.
it.
It probably. I mean, because I think that you do realize that like it's possible to have conversations and not
Feel
react
attacked
or,
and yeah. And then it's coming from a place that's like much deeper than you ever thought.
Yeah.
Like it's not about like the surface thing. It's usually about something much deeper that's harder to talk about maybe.
Right.
That's my favorite part about MDMA is I think that there have been a lot of times where I don't probably handle it in the right way, but I express something that's bothering me or hurting my feelings. And in a sober state, he's can be very quick to be like, you know, well, this doesn't make sense. And, you know, just react.
Like a logical mind.
Yeah. And then on MDMA, we can have that same conversation. And he's like, tell me more. Like, and more, like, and I get to go in deeper because you're right. And I say this all the time. It's never just the situation at hand.
Right.
It's triggering, but it's triggering a deep wound.
Yeah.
And he doesn't necessarily know what the wound is.
Well, and it's like it's almost like you've got this permission now to like dig deeper, and you've got this blanket of love wrapped around you.
Yeah, and I get to like talk about it and continue to talk about it and continue to talk about it like in depth, and him too.
But I think that the other thing that you said that like I don't know how deep the wound is. I think that the thing that we've discovered is that you don't know how deep the wound is either.
That's a good point.
True that.
Because it's like we know we have these deep, deep, deep wounds. We realize that. We're conscious of that. But it's like when you really sit back with it, you're like, oh my God. And not only that, but it was this and this and this and this and this. And then it just kept piling on. And so it's really even deeper than like what I thought it was. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just gives you that blanket. So, I want to know how, and you don't have to like go into like details or anything, but how different is your relationship now versus pre-psychedelics? And I know you already said like her anxiety and all that stuff, but like your relationship, like the two of you together, like how has that changed? Has it helped it at all?
No, I think it's helped it a lot. I think that it has helped us to have a better understanding of where each other are coming from. And I think that we've learned together, you know, about like how deep some of these things are and how they don't necessarily have anything to do with the other person. You know, so it's like, you know, a lot of I may overreact in a situation, and it may trigger something in her, and it's not necessarily that like I overreacted. Like if I was having that conversation with you, it may not impact you at all,
Right.
but it triggers something in her because of something that happened to her in her past, and then I don't know that, she doesn't even know that, and then, you know, it becomes more. And so I think that it's just allowed us to get to know each other a lot better and understand each other, where we're coming from, and like, and for me, it's been a lot of it's that, you know, the things that maybe she's even saying when we're having a serious conversation don't necessarily have anything to do with me, and it's not necessarily personal with me. Whereas before, I would have probably taken it personal, that it was like whatever it was, you know, directed at me, but it's not really directed at me.
Right. I think if anything, it creates a lot more empathy. I try to say that, I mean, there's so many different people out there with so many different wounds, and, you know, Jason struggles, I think, a lot with empathy. And I don't want to say it's because he's autistic, but that is definitely,
Doesn't help.
it doesn't help. Like I don't want to say even they have a hard time. Like he has a very hard time understanding that someone else's brain doesn't work the way that his does, or that someone else's feelings don't work the way his does. He sees it.
Right.
He sees the way I am. He sees the way our kids are. He sees it. But even that, it's very hard for him to understand, well, it doesn't bother me, so why does it bother you? Yeah. It's so hard for him to put himself in someone else's shoes, or to put himself in their mind. I mean, that's hard for anybody, right, honestly. So
yeah, I feel like that's something that I've always been really, really good at. But until, you know, my relationship with Christine, I didn't realize how I really wasn't that good at it. You know?
Oh, damn.
So, because, you know, it just, you know, like it's always been a strength of mine is to be able to see like myself from their position. And, but, you know, I think that it's a lot deeper when somebody has a lot of trauma.
Well, that kind of goes into what I wanted to ask you next, because Christine and I we were on a podcast last night as guests, and one of the things she asked was about us being parents. And I think that I want to talk about that with you, because one of the things I realized was I didn't even realize I could have been a better mom until I became a better mom. And I'm not saying that I was a bad mom. I just wasn't as present as I am now with my children. And it's hard to, like, it's a hard thing to admit to, because to know that like for like 14 years of being a mom, I wasn't a present mom. I was in survival mode. I think that psychedelics have really, really helped me be a more conscious parent, a more present parent, a more empathetic parent. What has it done for your parenting that is different than the way you parented before?
Well, I think that for me, because I have a 21-year-old, an 18-year-old, and now a 4-year-old, and, you know, having two children that are, you know, now entering adulthood,
yeah,
you know, you start to see the way that the things that you did when they were younger has impacted them as an adult.
Oh, damn.
And so that's been evolving in me really since I met Christine. I don't think that I necessarily even realized a lot of the things until, you know, I saw it through her eyes or heard it from her, like what she saw. And, you know, and so I've changed a lot in that regard over the last 8 years. Whereas, you know, I was a lot more, you know, short fused, and
So you ran hot too?
I ran hot too. Yeah. But mine would typically, like, it would just simmer, and then I would explode.
Got it.
And I wouldn't explode and, like, you know, physically do anything, but, you know, I might explode and yell for sure, or maybe, you know, grab the steering wheel really hard, or, you know, hit the steering wheel,
Like
or
make an impact or something.
yeah.
Yeah. She told me this
Throw
morning.
a phone. I used to
reminded her
throw
of
my
you.
phone all the time. Like when I was in my, like, early 30s, there was a period of time when I had digital lifestyles, and I actually used to talk about carrying a phone just so I could throw my phone.
This is before like $1,000 iPhones.
Yeah, well, they were like the, you know, and at the time we had like these like contractor style phones, so they could handle it.
Yeah.
But
Probably run over that shit and it'd still work.
Yeah, but I remember, you know, back then especially, I if I got really mad, like, it would be like some kind of outburst, you know, throw something, yell, you know, kick something, you know, I don't know, but and so, you know, I think, and my older daughter is very similar to me, and she's very stubborn, and I guess stubborn, and so
I guess.
and so, like, we butted heads a lot, and she
Yeah.
would push me, and she would push me harder than just about anybody else would push me, and you just, you know, I would get that mad, and then I would, you know, like, erupt. And you know, one of the biggest eye-opening things I think that, you know, I've discovered over, you know, the last 8 years is how that impacted my other daughter, which that never happened with. So, like, I don't think that I've really ever, like, yelled at her probably the way that I yelled at my 21-year-old, but she would see me and the 21-year-old, which she wasn't 21 at the time, but she would see me and my older daughter fighting, and then, you know, and I think that in her mind, like, she, like, that really impacted her.
She's sensitive.
And she's very sensitive, and that's probably a part of the reason why she's so sensitive. And so, you know, I think that, you know, whereas my older daughter is very quick to express her emotions and let you know how she feels, my younger one doesn't, and she has anxiety. And so part of me thinks that, like, a good reason maybe why she has anxiety is because over her, you know, younger life, she learned to just keep her mouth shut and keep it in, because she saw what happened if you let it out. And so she, you know, and I think that was, you know, has probably had a lot to do with me.
I think that's huge. That's like a huge realization to have.
Yeah.
That's some self-awareness.
And it sucks.
Right?
You know? I mean,
when you realize that?
Yeah. And, you know, so, but I think that, you know, and now realizing how, you know, because when Christine and I first got together, like, if we had a fight, like, I might react the same way. But now realizing, you know, how much that impacts the other person, even if you're not, like, saying anything mean to them, or you're not, you know, putting your hands on them or whatever, that it still can be, you know, abusive, and, you know, and, you know, trying to control that rage that you get inside when you get really upset, because, you know, having an awareness of, you know, how that's impacting other people.
Well, I want to say something about that really quick, because self-awareness, a lot of people, I think it is just like, well, yeah, I do this thing, and this is probably why. But there are 4 levels of self-awareness, and there's, like, the awareness of what you're doing, but also why you're doing it, the awareness of the impact that it has on other people, the awareness that it is not in line with the person that you are wanting to be, or the person that you are proud to be. I can't remember what the 4th one is, but doesn't matter.
So the thing I
but, like, the awareness
of, I still don't know why. I don't know where my, like, that comes from in me, and I did think that the journey might actually, you know, show me that, but
maybe one will.
But it really didn't. Yeah.
That's a hard one though. Like when you have to sit with things and like dig and dig and dig and figure out why you're doing it, like that's not an easy thing for anybody to do.
But does there always have to be a why?
No.
You know what I mean?
There really doesn't.
I think that may be the case with me.
Because like he's Italian, his dad was Italian, his dad had a short fuse too. I think you see that with a lot of Italian people.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know if that was a factor, but I think then getting into a relationship with someone who was a victim of abuse was probably very eye-opening, because there were times when we first started dating and I was like, no, sir, you ain't gonna do that to me.
So the parenting thing, because, you know, I saw you get like a little bit emotional having that like realization that like, oh shit, I did that.
Yeah.
I said this last night, and I can repeat it because it's not our podcast that's coming out. We were a guest on someone's podcast, but, you know, that was a really big thing for me, is realizing I could have been a better parent, and knowing that like I don't have as good of a relationship with my 15-year-old. And I've always said it's because he never talks and because he's very quiet and shy, and realizing like, oh, it's because I'm not asking him questions. Mm-hmm. He doesn't talk, but literally had a conversation with him in the car. I told you this yesterday, but also asked him, like, does it bother you that I talk so much? Does it bother you that I ask questions a lot? And he was like, no, I like people who talk a lot because I don't have to. And I was like, oh, I don't annoy him. Like, he likes it because then he doesn't have to talk.
Yeah.
And he does talk, but like you just kind of have to dig a little bit.
And you think about that when you're in a situation like you're in a room maybe with a bunch of people that you don't know, and you feel like you have to say something. Like, you're more than happy when somebody else is carrying that conversation, because you can just sit back and not have to.
And I like joked with him because he's also like he's into a girl right now, and I was like, I know I didn't tell you that. The first day he told me that in the car, I love my car days with him. This is
car
another
days
thing.
really are the best. I learned that going through divorce with my older daughter.
Never used to think about it before, but that's like the most quality time that I spend with him, is like running him around from band practice, running to the gym. Like there's a lot of conversations that happen there
too.
Really?
Yeah, because the way you're sitting. So you're sitting both facing the same direction. You're not facing each other. It's not intense. So it's a much, like,
creates like a safe.
It makes it a safe,
wow.
safer space to have a conversation. So you can have a difficult conversation and it's not as intense, because, you know, and then you have
other things to focus on.
You're physically moving in the same direction. So it's like you guys are moving in the same direction.
There is a whole psychological thing to this. Yeah. That is wild. Well, one of the things that we were talking about, I was trying to help him like talk. I said, well, you know, when you talk to this girl, like she's probably, if she talks a lot, she's probably going to have a lot of open-ended questions. And, you know, I know that you don't like them, but like, let's work on that. Like she's going to want to know things about you, because she's probably going to tell you everything about her. You don't even have to ask. She's going to tell you. And we're having this conversation, and I'm like, you know, when he says I like people who talk a lot, I was like, oh my God, that's why Jason wanted a second date, because I talked the whole time and he didn't have to. Yeah. That's exactly it. Yeah.
I've never thought about that before either, but I could see it for sure.
Yeah. I see it now in my son, but just realizing like I'm closer with my 15-year-old than I have ever been. And that guilty punch in the gut that was like that realization of like, oh, I'm the reason we weren't close before. Like, that hurts. Yeah. But then also, and I'm going to tell you this too, because it like completely, talk about mindset shift. I think having the awareness now and being different now, and having your children be able to come to you and say these things, and you saying, I know that I did that and I'm sorry for that and I don't want to be that person anymore, is a gift that a lot of us are walking around wishing we had with our parents, with our own parents.
Because how many parents?
I was a perfect parent and I didn't do anything wrong, and that's not my fault, and you can't blame me for your addiction. And, you know, it's hard to hear as a child.
Right.
And so many
adult child.
So many of us adults wish we had a parent who was just like, you know, I was really struggling. I didn't do the right thing, and I'm so sorry that impacted you.
Right.
But a lot of times, you know, kids and even adults will address their parents or say, "Hey, that hurt me." And they're like, "Okay, I guess I'm just the worst mom.
Worst
then."
mom ever.
And it goes them into the this victim mentality. So I know that, you know, you feel shame and guilt for those things, but how huge is it that you actually can reflect, be aware, take accountability, apologize to your children?
But also that you're showing your children that evolution is possible.
Well, and I think that that's something that if they don't take anything from me, they should take that. You know?
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, that they do.
They do.
And
They look up to
and
them.
and I, you know, and I've had those conversations with both of them. Like, I'm sorry that I did a lot of the things that I do or did. And I think that, you know, I've told Christine, like, how good is it for Kai, our 4-year-old, that he gets this version of me and her versus, you know, like what the version that my older kids got. Like,
right.
He has a major advantage over them.
But imagine even when he's 14, like the evolution that you will have made from now to 10 years from now. Like, you're just kind of on this trajectory of growth.
Right.
And I think that that's what everybody should be doing, is like, you should be constantly, like, it's okay to get stuck every now and then, but like, you should be constantly striving to like do better in every area of your life, and to know that like, oh wow, and this is going to get better. That's crazy.
Yeah. But
you're giving him a gift.
But and so few people do, though. I feel like especially when, you know, when you see that change happen in yourself, and then, you know, you see other people and how little that they actually change. You know, so many people, I feel like, get stuck in everything.
Let me ask you about that, because I think sometimes I feel a little. Well, I don't want to say I don't feel judgmental. I think my husband thinks I'm very judgmental of people who are stuck. And it's not that. It's easier for me to see because I'm doing the work where other people aren't. And it's easier for me to decide whether or not I want that person in my life.
Yeah.
It's not a judgment. And I'm not like, you should be doing this and you should be doing this. But it's like, well, I'm doing this stuff and you're like still there, and I just need somebody who is on the same trajectory as I am, because I need people in my life that are going to hold me accountable, that are going to push me to grow, like mentors and friendships that are positive and inspiring, so I don't get stuck, because I know myself, and if I surround myself with people like that, I'm going to get stuck. So it's wild to hear you say, like, you see that more in people.
Yeah. And I just think that it's just, I mean, it's human nature for most people. Most people like living in the comfort zone.
Yeah. It's hard to get uncomfortable.
Yeah. And that's something that it's almost like a muscle. I feel like that, like, you work that out, like being, you know, uncomfortable and putting yourself in those situations that, like, once you do that and you realize that like good comes out of that, then it's like you almost look forward to it, like doing something else that's uncomfortable, because you know that like it's not going to feel good in the moment, but you know that it's going to help you and you're going to grow because of it.
I think that that's why, like, it's not this healing journey is not about being healed. And we say this so many times, but like, you know, I know you've been struggling for the last 6 weeks, but you're not swallowed by it. Like, you know, it's like this like difficult moment. It's momentary. It's a small blip in like the rest of what's happening and what's going to happen. So it's easier to get yourself out of those moments and to push forward. So it doesn't mean it's easy.
Right.
It's still very difficult, but like, it's easier to like tell yourself, okay, I'm feeling anxious right now, or I'm feeling depressed right now, or this thing just happened, or this loss just happened, but something's going to come out of this. So I need to be prepared for that other thing.
Right.
Yeah. I think when you go through it enough, that's why like shadow work, every like body is so afraid of shadow work. And I'm like, it gets easier. Yeah. It's still really hard.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
not saying it's easy.
Yeah, no, it was still really rough.
What's shadow work?
You've done it.
You've done it and you don't even know.
Yeah. Okay. It's just kind of like sitting with the dark parts of yourself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And really understanding them. And it's interesting because Christine did compare me to you this morning, because I'm not a run hot type of person. I've never been that way ever in my entire life. And it's been coming up lately. And I mean, you listen to the podcast, you know, like there's this part of me that like blows up, and I am aware of it, and I am aware of why, and I am aware of how it impacts other people. And it's still very scary.
Yeah.
It's a scary part of me that I wish I could completely dissolve myself from.
Yeah. That's something that like when I've gotten really angry, like it's like, I hate that side.
Yeah.
I do not enjoy it.
No.
You know, and that's something that, you know, like when those moments come, like now I can start to feel them coming, and then like, you know, try to recenter myself.
Like there's like I don't want to say a break, but it's almost, this is new for me. So it's still very, very hard for me to, I mean, you were in bed with Christine the other night when I was like, I'm about to fucking rage.
Can I just say my favorite thing that you did?
What?
I was like, okay, like, do we need to go like do some breath work or meditate or whatever? And then I go, Leah, what are you doing? And you don't respond for a while. And then you respond like 2 hours later and you go, raging, what you doing?
I forgot about that.
And I go, oh no.
I did it.
Because I did it. Yeah. Because I literally was like, Leah, what are you doing?
But that's the thing. Like, I can feel it.
Yeah.
And
coming.
I, you know, and so like what, again, and I'm conscious of those moments now, especially if they're not like, if it's not like something in the heat of the moment. So it's like, if like, it's a little bit different if I'm, having a disagreement with Christine.
Yeah.
But like, I physically am telling myself or mentally telling myself, like, are you going to let whatever it is that's going on impact the way you feel? And is it worth it? And I will tell myself those in those situations. And, so like with my ex-wife, like Christine will say to me, like, I don't know why this doesn't make you mad. And I'm like, it does. It infuriates me, but I'm choosing to not let it bother me. Like, I'm not going to go there because I don't want to go into that side.
Well, because it's like taking your power away.
It takes your power away. When you get that angry, if you don't get angry, then you have the power. But when you get angry, you lose control. And then in my mind, that other person has won. And so it's like I'm physically or mentally telling myself those things on it happens multiple times a week probably. And it could even be something that's not even, you know, like that big. Like maybe it's something that happens in business or whatever, where somebody says something that, you know, pisses you off.
Right.
And it's like, are you going to let that impact your day? Are you going to let that impact the way that you feel? And I'm, you know, consciously telling myself like, no, I'm not. And there may be moments where I get really mad at something and I'll even start to, you know, maybe react or respond. And then I'll tell myself that and then calm myself down. And then it's like, just move on.
See, that's hard for me right now. I feel like I have a toddler.
Hard. It's hard. It's taken years to get to, you know, to that point for me, and seeing like this a side of me where, you know, maybe I overreact or I you know, I say things. And it's funny because when I worked at Honeywell, I would say that all the people that know me well would say that I probably run hot, and and at Honeywell, I have had a lot of conversations with a lot of people. And they would just be like, you know, you always are so even keeled all the time. Like
do you mean at Digital Lifestyles?
No, at Honeywell.
Oh, okay.
At Honeywell, people would say like, I'm even keeled. Like people that, you know, because you're on meetings and stuff all the time. And, get a phone call afterwards and somebody's like, man, like, I can't believe like you stayed so calm. And I'm like, if they could have just seen me in the background, like physically pulling my hair out or, whatever I was doing.
You're like,
I'm like, I'm not.
He was under there.
Yeah. Because it's like, it's bubbling up.
Like clawing its way out.
Yeah.
Oh, see, okay. I need you to be my like mindset coach for like how to not channel it. I know how to fucking channel it. I don't know how to calm her down once she like starts poking out.
I don't know. It's
come in handy. And I'll say this, like we had a situation with our lease, right before we left for Cabo. And that's a situation where you said earlier, you dealt with the bad stuff and let Christine be the good guy, good cop, bad cop. I was never one to like be mean to anybody, but I was like, oh, you're going to fuck with me? All right. I'm going to have this conversation with you. I would literally drop my rent check off under the door because I didn't want to run into the guy there because I just didn't like interacting with him. But this day I was like, I'm going to fucking channel my rage. I dare you to fuck with me. And I said what I needed to say. I did really fucking good. I came home and I was like, I'm so proud of myself. I'd never in a million things like that scare the shit out of me. Like I don't like confrontation, but it's like I channeled this rage for a confrontation that needed to happen because this guy was being just a fucking dick, and it worked out. I was like, okay, if I can just learn to like use it when I need to, like, because I can't get rid of it. I'm never going to be able to just get rid of it. Yeah. She's part of me,
But you just have to have that conversation in your head. Like,
is it time?
And is it worth it? Like,
is it worth
do you want to let this person impact your day?
Yeah.
Like, because to me, it's very rare that somebody else should be able to impact how you feel.
Yeah.
Like in general, it shouldn't happen. Maybe in a relationship with kids and things like that, like it happens, but people that are outside of that, like they should not be able to impact. And then the other thing that I've realized is that a lot of times when people are, acting a certain way or doing certain things, it's them, they're just projecting it on you.
Yeah.
But yeah, my mindset and, I think is something that I've really tried to talk to my daughters about on a regular basis.
That's huge.
Especially recently.
That's huge.
Yeah. And manifestation, because I think that manifestation is real, and I'm really interested in that too. Like I've been doing a lot of research on manifestation and like how it actually works, because that was something that I always thought was kind of bullshit. But, maybe that's about.
But you've kind of witnessed it. Like you've been a product of it. You've watched it for yourself. You've seen it happen. I feel like that's what spirituality is like having this experience that's really hard to explain to other people, but it worked for you. And that's why it's different than religion, because you're not going out here telling everybody else like this is the way that you have to do it, and if you don't, and but
when I went through my journey, I had that feeling. I was like, and you were talking earlier about the hippie friend or whatever that talks to themselves or whatever.
Yeah.
And there was part of my journey where I like saw somebody like that, and I was actually like, because like part of mine was that like all of the day-to-day stuff that we're dealing with doesn't matter. Like it's like life is much bigger than what we experience on a day-to-day basis, and we're just like part of this the universe. And that like literally if you look at the universe and you look at galaxies, how they look and how the universe looks, and how cells look, and it's like we're all just part of this one thing that is the universe, and that our spirits are just like what we are as physical people on Earth is just like a moment in time for our spirit, and that is not who we are. Like we're more than that. We were here. We were who we are before we were on Earth, and sorry, I talked to my hands. We are who we were after.
You got that from your first mushroom trip.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty incredible. But I also I think that we say this, they give you what you need, not what you want, but also I feel like they're never going to give you anything that you're not ready for. And for Jason, his third mushroom trip was very spiritual. His first two, he had to dig through the muck before he ever got to a place where he was open to that spiritual, like we are one with the universe, but also a blip in the grand scheme of things. Like it sounds a lot like yours in that like realization, like coming out of it and realizing like this doesn't matter.
Right. None
of this matters.
Yeah, it doesn't. And what I was also thinking was that hippie person is actually the person that has it figured out, because they don't actually, like, they're not worried about money and
constructs,
things, materialistic stuff,
fitting in a box,
and what other people think about them or whatever.
Well, what is that word? Like homogenous, like everyone trying to be the same, like everyone trying to fit in, and like having this realization that you're like, I wasn't meant to fit in. Neither were you. We're all supposed to be different, and we're all supposed to be uniquely ourselves and expressing that. And that's what makes it beautiful. Like trying to fit in with everyone else is doing a disservice to yourself, but also everyone else.
Yeah. That's why it's so ironic when, like, you know, people have made fun of us or make fun of others because they're being weird or they're doing things different. Like being like everyone else is some flex. Because to me, I'm like, oh, congratulations. None of you are being authentic because you're just trying to do what's cool or what you think like society expects you to do. And you're judging people because they don't care about that.
Well, and that has to be exhausting. Like feeling like you're always having to like put on this mask to be accepted.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I know it's exhausting because
I've
I did
been there.
it.
Yeah.
It
sucks.
I did it. And what's wild is I was like applauded for it. Like I was put on a pedestal because I made it look like my life was perfect. And I fit into the mold of this picture perfect American family. And everybody looked up to me. And literally I would come home and like cry my fucking eyes out because I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
So what are you winning by fitting in?
Right.
What was in it for me?
Yeah.
Being accepted. So you had this like very spiritual experience. You said your parents came up. Like what was?
Well, and also again, context. I'm, you know, basically an atheist. Like I don't really believe in God. I don't, you know, believe like in, you know, like spirits talking and all that kind of, you know, stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, I think having the experience that I had, it was spiritual, but it's funny because it didn't feel spiritual. You know, it just felt like exploring, like it was like learning things. Like I would come out of it and I never really understood what Christine would mean when she was like, you know, when you're in it
and out of it.
And then, so like I would kind of like come out, which if you've never done a journey it's kind of like daydreaming, I guess, like almost like it's like a subconscious, you're like in your subconscious, almost like you're not sleeping, but you're coherent.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, but I would come out of it and then like think about things that I saw, and then I would be like, all right, I need to go back in. I want to learn more about that. And then I would go back in, and I mean, I was in mine for what, over 3 hours, I think.
It was like 3 or 4 hours where he was like in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he came out once to like go to the bathroom. I'm like, you okay? He's like, yeah.
Going back in.
Going back in.
Oh, really?
And then there was one time he came out and he's like looking for a picture. I'm like, okay, what picture? What do you need? Blah, blah, blah. And so we like looked at it, looked through his phone, whatever. But he's like, okay,
Going back in.
bye, going back in. Yeah. And I was just like,
okay. Yeah. It's not at all what you thought.
No.
Yeah. Would you do it again?
Yeah. No. I'm definitely will do it again.
Okay.
Yeah. Matter of fact, after I did it, I was like, I would do it again tomorrow if I could. I was ready to go back and do it again.
Well, don't get all like cocky about it because you might have one knock you on your ass one day.
I'm afraid of that still. Like
I'm still afraid of that.
Yeah, I still think that
my last one knocked me on my fucking ass.
I feel like it's if you get too cocky, like it'll do that. Yeah. So I know going in that not all of them are going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
And some of them might be dark, but I am of that mindset that no matter what it is, when I come out of this, I'm going to have something.
Right.
And that's why I do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I guess back to your question about
your parents.
My parents.
Yeah.
So, so I'm not like, I don't know what to believe. You know what I mean? And that's why I say like,
that's why I don't think you're an atheist.
But I don't believe in God. I don't believe in God. I know that.
I don't.
I still don't.
Yeah, I don't.
But
I feel like the word spirituality it weirds people out, especially atheists, because he's an atheist. And I was agnostic, and it weirded me out because it reminds me of religion, and I'm not religious.
Right.
But I think spirituality is just whatever you make it.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I didn't really have much with my dad, but I did have quite a bit with my mom, and and I have, one of the things about her was that she was in a nursing home for a long time, and I didn't visit her nearly as much as I should have when she was in the nursing home. And so I have a lot of guilt about that. And so a big part of my journey was just forgiving myself for anything that I've done, and that we're not perfect. Like nobody's perfect. And, it's just part of being human is to make mistakes and to have flaws and to forgive yourself. And so that was a big part of it. But also I saw my mom, and she was dying. She was on her deathbed, but it wasn't sad. And it was because it was like, that's not who she is. Like now kind of having this view of like what we are, which I still don't really know that, but like knowing that, or not knowing, it's because I still would say I don't know, but feeling. like that we are, just part of this universe that's, constantly growing and moving or whatever. That she was not, that person in that body was not all she was, that she was, this was just like a snippet of like her journey of who she is. And that it was almost like in the analogy that I came out of it was like when she died, it was like a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. Like the caterpillar goes away, but then this butterfly is born, and you don't mourn the caterpillar when that happens. And so that was kind of the feeling that I had about my mom when she died. It was like, it wasn't sad. It was just like, this is just her moving on to the next stage of who she is. And she's not physically here with us anymore, but it's not something it wasn't sad at all.
Like her soul's journey.
Yeah.
Like I know the words are like weird for you probably, but I think that's like, how else would you explain that? I mean, the butterfly analogy, like that's a really good way to explain it, but I just feel like she's moved on from this plane.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I felt was like that mushrooms were like a way to tap into the universe, and that it was like kind of like a portal to the universe to really have an understanding of kind of like what's going on. And
like it's almost like you get to know a little bit of the secrets.
Yeah, it was kind of, it was. And then the other thing that I felt is that like she was actually, my mom was the like portal to the universe for me. So like, and it was weird because like I had this vision of like me coming out of her, but it wasn't like me coming out of her body. It was like that inside her body was the universe. It was weird. Yeah.
Wow. So after this, Christine talks you into going to see a medium.
Yeah.
And you are probably, you're a little bit more open, I think, than Jason is now.
But I'm still not buying it even going in. Like I'm very skeptical. I'm a skeptical person.
He is
in
too.
General.
He needs logic. He needs
Yeah.
whys. He needs
Right.
like reason. He's very black and white.
Yeah.
He's going to go see her in November.
I need to see it. Like I need to like I'm not just gonna. You can tell me something all you want, and I'm not gonna believe it.
You need to experience it.
Where
for
you
yourself.
tell me something, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
Right.
I believe you.
She read something on TikTok, and she's like, "Did you know?" And I'm like, "Where did you get that from?" Is that from TikTok? She's like, "Well, yeah," and I'm like, "Okay, that doesn't mean it's a fact."
You're like Austin. You said that before. You're Austin.
I am Austin.
You're literally Austin. I love that. Okay, what did I just ask? Oh,
Jenny.
So you go and see this medium and
Yeah.
have this experience because again, like you're that person who's like you're open, a little bit.
I mean, I never would have done it if she wouldn't have bought it for me.
Yeah.
And I guess I had heard Jenny on the podcast before that.
My fucking girl, man.
I love her.
But yeah, that caught me off guard a little bit.
You had a very good experience, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like, and that's kind of the thing. Like, I feel like you and I are just sitting on this other side, and when people have these experiences, we're like, you get it now, right?
I still
I told
remember.
you.
I still remember your face when I came out of my first journey.
You do?
Oh my gosh, I'll
Your
never
first
forget it.
journey?
Yes.
What was I
will never
doing?
forget it.
I was like,
Yeah, I came out and I was like, and you're like, right? I know, right? Yeah.
Well, that's kind of how she was with me too, because she was like, she wanted to talk to me. She's like, oh, so what happened? And I'm like, I can't even talk right now. Like I can't put words together.
you're like, you should know this, Christine. I can't
also,
talk to
can
you.
I also backtrack on the mushroom journey? Something that popped up for you was he was like, I got to talk about this.
Oh yeah. Well, that was the other thing, was that I felt like, because I was like, you said something earlier in the beginning of the interview, kind of along this, but I was like, why do people not know about this? Like why is this? Why is everybody not doing this? Like this should be. And then I was like, I need to quit doing what I'm doing. I need to do something with this. And then I was like, no, my job is to do that through Christine and to like allow her to be the person that's going to spread, the gospel.
But I think that's why it's important that we have you on. Because here's the thing. I've said this before. I think that Christine and I were in the universe conspired and put us in positions where we were able to be open about it immediately. Are not worrying about what our families thought of us, being removed from that judgment, not worrying about our bosses, being removed from that judgment. Right. And it's wild because the people that we know who have done this, they're pretty big in the corporate world, and one's a lawyer, and there's nurses and doctors and a principal, and just there's a lot of people in this space who are not in the position that we are in.
Right. And you can't
to
just
openly talk about it.
Right.
But they come out of it and they feel the same way.
Right.
Like, why isn't anybody talking about this?
Right.
And it's not everybody's job to.
Well, and then another thing that I remember feeling was like, how the fuck is this illegal?
Yeah.
And who are people? Who is any person to say that this is against the law and that you shouldn't be able to do this?
Good point.
And it was just like, and I just remember thinking like, fuck them. Like anybody that thinks that this is illegal, like you have no right.
Yeah. Or that it should be.
Right.
Anybody who thinks it should be, like, you don't understand it.
No, they have no clue. But it's just like, who are you to keep somebody else from going through an experience like that and learning more about like
Themselves
and other people
and the world
just
around them,
the world and the universe.
Yeah. Make it make sense, Tony.
Yeah. It doesn't.
I know. It really doesn't. So, welcome to the weirdos.
Yeah. He is a weirdo. I love it.
And I mean that in like the best way possible. Like, I know I'm fucking, I say that a lot. I know I'm weird. I know I'm not weird. Like, to me, like, the people who think I'm weird are the weirdos. Like, y'all are the weirdos.
The thing that I've also over the last year learned is that the people that really think that it's like really weird, I feel like and the ones that are judgmental of it are probably more the minority now. Because I feel like that more often than not, like if I do tell somebody, even if it's somebody that I wouldn't expect to understand or be like, oh, that's interesting, that they're really interested in it. Like there's a lot of interest in psychedelics right now.
Yeah.
Especially, psilocybin mushrooms.
Yeah, a lot of it. But I think that's why your voice and your story matters even more, because this is one of the things that we say often. This should not be a last line of defense. This should, the clinical trials that are happening, the only reason that they're able to do clinical trials, and they started with end-of-life patients, because no one's going to experiment and have these clinical trials on healthy, well people.
Right.
And then it kind of grew from there. Okay, well, now we're going to do it for mental health. Now we're going to do it for depression. Now we're going to do it for treatment-resistant depression and anxiety and addiction. But what about the people who are just okay?
Right.
I don't mean to say that about you,
no,
but it's like
I think that I generally
you were okay.
Right, yeah.
So
I wasn't on any medications or depressed or anxiety.
You weren't struggling.
You didn't have this traumatic childhood. You didn't have this big.
It wasn't an
thing.
end of the line for you.
No,
for Christine and I both, it was a what the fuck else have I got to lose?
Yeah, exactly. And that's how Christine
I've done everything and it hasn't worked. Yeah. And for you, it was just like okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I've seen how it impacted her.
Yeah.
And and it's like, I want both of my older kids to do this. Like, I think that they would benefit from it. I'm not going to push it on them.
Right.
But that's a whole other thing. Cause it's like, it's always been like, well, how do you talk to your teenage kids about mushrooms and drugs?
You want me to tell you? You want me to give you some advice? I did it just yesterday with my 11-year-old.
I mean, I've been doing it.
No, I know.
Now, but go ahead.
I mean, no, it's not advice. I just thought it was funny because I showed Christine a video from yesterday, like my 11-year-old saying, I'm not going to do drugs. And I'm like, I need you to say that again, and I'm going to keep this on camera. I'm going to record this, and I'm going to show this to you every year because I'm telling you, like, you're probably going to do drugs.
Austin is me because I won my DARE program.
He was like, why would I do drugs? Drugs are bad. And I was like, but what makes them bad, Austin? Like, I'm like, I literally said to him, I said, I'm going to be honest. You're probably going to do some drugs.
Yeah.
I just want you to know what you're doing and why you're doing them before you ever do them.
And to make sure that you're doing something that doesn't have something else in it.
Yeah. Right.
That's really the
do it safely.
Risk, with any of this.
Yeah.
This
and
stuff.
do your research. And I don't want you to keep it from me because you think that you're going to get in trouble for doing drugs. If anything, I want you to come to me because I'll help you find them. I'm just kidding. But no, I'll help you do them safely. And I don't want you to feel like you're going to be in trouble for experimenting. He's an experimenter too, by the way.
So yeah, he won't think that forever.
No.
But glad you got that on video.
Yeah, he was like, you're gonna forget about this video. I was like, nope, I'm gonna show it to you every year on your birthday, and I'm gonna ask you if you've done drugs yet. Because I also said to him, I was like, you do drugs every day, like you're addicted to sugar just like me.
Right. Caffeine.
Yeah. I was like, you do drugs. You just have a different understanding of what drugs are.
Yeah.
Than what I think a lot of people do. So, where were we going with
Jenny?
That? Oh yeah, I mean, and we've talked about the experience that you had. Like Christine brought that up.
Oh yeah,
so,
we did a whole fucking episode.
Yeah, we did an episode on it.
I forgot about that.
So the next question that I have, and I promise we'll wrap this up. I know it's like you got stuff to do. You're a busy person.
I've booked out till 5 o'clock.
Oh heck yes, we'll be here till 5.
We do have to pick up our kid. One of us does. So.
We gotta eat too. So something that has come up a lot with Christine is how much she was or has been in her masculine. And this language might sound weird to some, like being a conscious masculine and being a conscious feminine and having like both sides and understanding that there's like a duality there and that duality is important. And so just because she's the feminine female in the relationship doesn't mean she shouldn't have masculine qualities. Like we should all have an equal balance of both so that the feminine masculine relationship is also equally balanced. Are you picking up what I'm putting down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she was so far in her masculine, and her journey has been trying to be softer, be kinder. I mean, not that you weren't kind; you were always kind. But like,
I mean,
Yeah,
I
sure.
wasn't until I wasn't.
that's
Yeah,
true.
you were always generally a kind person.
Yeah.
But fuck around.
And find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll burn your house down.
So I guess my question is like, how have you helped her? How have you supported her in becoming more in touch with her feminine side? What does that look like for you?
I mean, I'll ask
Or
you,
in the
how have I-
relationship.
How have I helped you?
Oh yeah, let's ask you, Christine.
Yeah, I think it's very deep because obviously I've spoken openly about having that father wound, and then growing up with a single mother who struggled. I didn't have, she didn't date or whatever, all while I was growing up, and she's deep in her masculine, very deep, and so I was somebody who was very aggressive, very black and white with my thinking. I kind of hated men. And I'll just kind of be honest about that. I dated men and I had like long-term monogamous relationships with men, but there was like, I have such a good front of being very hard
Yeah.
and tough. And I'm like, I feel like sometimes you know me better than I know myself. I'm not. Like it was a protective shield that I had. And like when you truly get to the deep depths of me, I'm actually incredibly sensitive and I am a crier and I can be really soft. It just, I get to be soft and I've never felt safe enough to be that way. Ever. In any relationship that I've had with, whether it be my father, whether it be with somebody I was in a relationship before Tony.
Well, maybe because you've always had to be your own safety.
Yeah, and I got into relationships where I did not trust them. So I did not trust myself to let my guard down and show that soft, vulnerable side, who I really am.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't safe to do so. So I think, were we talking about this yesterday? That video where it was talking about how relationships work.
Oh,
When it's either a man and a woman
love each other
equally, or the man loves the woman
more than she loves the man.
she loves the man. And I think that when we first started dating, he 100% loved me more.
Like obsessed with you.
So obsessed. And I do, like, it was a thing where we met and we just met randomly. I was out with my girlfriends. He was on a fucking date. Let's just say that. He was on a date, but we started talking. We just randomly started talking, and then we just went our separate ways. And for him, I'm speaking for you, but correct me if I'm wrong. Like, we walked away from that conversation, and he's like, "Yep, that's her." Like, that's. I'm gonna get to know her. I'm gonna whatever. And he reached out to me, and he eventually. I was very resistant, but eventually got so we could go on a date. And I was still very
Guarded?
and I was kind of mean to him. Because there were times where he would just, like, he was reliable. He called me,
You motherfucker.
texted
Wow. How dare you?
me, wanted to hang out with me. Like, there was one time where he was like, I'm out with my friends, you know, you should meet up with me and we can go for a drink. And I'm like, I'm not going to hang out with you and your friends for the first date. And he's like, no, I would like leave them and we could go hang out. And he's like, and so then I was like, you're not going to leave your friends for me? Weird. No. But he just constantly showed up and he was consistent and he was kind and he was nurturing and I hated it. It made me feel really, really, really uncomfortable. And it kind of annoyed me. So there would be times where we would be in the car and he'd be like talking, like getting to know me. I'd be like, can you stop talking for like 5 minutes? Can I just have like some quiet? Like it took time for me to let the guard down.
Wow.
A lot of time.
But think about that. Like, I know that you probably hear people talk about it. You see like memes about it. You see like TikToks and stuff about how when you are someone who is used to people treating you poorly.
Yeah, I was used to getting treated like shit by men.
You have someone who comes along and treats you well. And it's so out of your comfort zone that you like self-sabotage because you're like, there's no way this is happening. There's no way this is true.
I also had such low self-worth that I subconsciously thought that I didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
Like I was not deserving of this person.
Yeah.
He was so much better than me.
But think about how many women get stuck in these like toxic relationships because that is their belief system. That is what they have experienced. And they don't allow themselves to experience the other part of it because even when it's real and genuine, it terrifies them.
Yeah.
It feels uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I want to say, are you okay?
Yeah, no, I'm just like thinking because being in... I got something in both of my eyes again.
Oh, damn.
I'm not crying.
Must be my room.
Yeah. Being in a safe relationship has helped me heal a lot of those childhood wounds that I never even touched before him. And he was the one who like encouraged me to go to therapy. Encouraged, like once we did research about mushrooms, like was so supportive. And even when I was in my journey, I know he was probably texting you like,
He did.
are you okay? Is she okay?
How is she doing?
How is she?
Yeah.
Like, there are huge parts of Tony that does sometimes annoy me because I feel like, you're not my dad.
I'm your daddy.
No, just dear Zaddy.
He is literally my zaddy in my phone.
I know.
I know.
We're just letting everybody else know.
Yeah. No, but like, and I'm not trying to sound weird, but he feels like this father void that I have never had. So he's really protective of me. And he really cares about my feelings. And, you know, even in the past when we've gotten in arguments, he was the one who always like came back and was like, okay, like let's talk. And like, because again, that guard it was up and that shell was it was deep. And he just never gave up and always, I feel like, saw me in ways that I didn't even see in myself and saw this light in me that I didn't see in myself. And, you know, without him, I don't think I would have opened a business. I don't think I would have, you know, done this mushroom journey, gotten help, touched my childhood. I would have continued to stay angry. But just having that safety in a man has taken time, but it's really allowed me to let my guard down and realize that like, oh, he cares about you. You're safe. He cares about your well-being. He cares about your feelings. He loves you like so unconditionally. And that is just something that I've never felt before. So
I think that she said a couple of things that I was thinking when we first started dating. I think that one of the things that that she was most attracted to was that I was a good dad.
Yes.
To Ava and Mia. And it's funny though, because there were a lot of times where even though that was what she was attracted to, it also became like resentment in a way that I would see it come out where she would sometimes be bitter that like I was a good dad, and I could see it and I could feel it. And it was because she didn't have that. And so there's this like, and even still today,
I feel that way with Kai.
yeah, even still too. Today with Kai, that still kind of happens where I can see like there's things that will happen, and she's like, like it makes me mad that I never had that, And then the other thing is that, I think that we really needed each other. I think that she needed that in me, and I needed what she had, which was, she's also very loving, and Christine's going to talk. So like, if there's something that's bothering her, it's going to get talked about. There's no not talking about it. Like I can physically see, like if she's upset, like I can tell by the way she's moving, literally her body language, just the way that she's holding her posture.
Like, just say it.
I can see that it's like something is getting ready to come out. And I think that I needed that, because I'm not somebody that typically is going to like to talk about, my feelings or, emotions, or if I hurt your feelings and if you act like you're okay, then I'm not going to bring it up and we're not going to talk about it. You know? And so she's forced me to, to have those conversations, and that's been really good for me too. And as a parent, and, trying to then have those hard conversations with, my older kids too. And then the other thing is that in retrospect now, because we're out of it, but the first couple of years of our relationship, it was very volatile. Like we fought a lot, and there were points where when we weren't fighting, it became uncomfortable for me, because I'm like, when's the next fight going to happen? Because it's like, I know that the other shoe's going to drop, and like, this was a good couple days, maybe a good week, but like, when's the next big? And I
You're
think
on
that
edge the whole time.
And so I kind of grew accustomed to that. But then what it made me realize later, when I got, as our relationship, it evolved and improved, was how much like her entire life was like that. Like her whole life was chaos with her, her sister and the abuse that she had growing up with, an abusive father, and then being in relationships with, guys that weren't good. And like, she was just accustomed to that chaos. And so I think that we just came together and were the right fit for each other, because even though like I didn't like the chaos, I was able to grow with it, I guess, and grow out of it. And we did that together.
Yeah.
And so
the thing that you said about like the female can't love the male more, like the woman can't love the man more. We should probably clarify that, because I think there's like a reason for it. And one of the reasons it said, and this was like from a therapist saying this, like the reason, and I truly believe it.
I do too.
The reason is because when a man truly, truly loves a woman, he is going to go above and beyond, and he is willing to do the work, which it sounds like that's what you were doing. Like you were just like, I'll do whatever you need, like you were willing to put in the work and the effort to make sure she was happy. And a woman does that anyway, whether in the relationship, whether she is like head over heels in love with him or not, she's going to do that anyway.
Oh yeah, I fought in relationships where like they cheated on me and they weren't willing to evolve, change, grow, and I like
you fought
still
for that.
Fought for it.
Yeah.
Until I was just like, okay, I'm like so burnt out, like I can't.
Yeah, and I really think it like just has a lot to do with that feminine desire to be accepted and loved by the masculine. It's like we're going to do that no matter what relationship we're in because we really, really are trying to get that connection.
Yeah.
No matter what it takes.
Yeah. And now
we want the approval and we want to be seen as that.
Have you seen those TikToks where the woman is like, I'm with this guy and they make me feel so safe and they take care of me that I feel like I get to turn my brain off?
I haven't seen those now.
Okay. Well,
your TikTok must be different than mine.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. Like I feel really protected and taken care of. And I know this is weird and you've seen it.
I've seen it.
Yeah. It's almost like I turn into, when I'm with him and we're alone and at home, I turn into a little baby.
I'm just a baby.
I'm just a little baby. I don't know anything. I don't know anything.
But it like you get to take your armor off.
Well,
you get to let someone else take care of you instead of being the only person who's ever done it.
Well, and I feel like I kind of get to be a kid who's taken care of.
Yeah. I don't think that's
and
weird
I never
at all.
got to really experience
Those are the kind of daddy issues that I'm like, I wish everybody had daddy issues like that because then you would choose the man that you wish you had as a dad. But then there's the other daddy issues where you end up getting into the same abusive patterns and the same abusive toxic relationships
and I've done both.
Because your dad was that. Yeah. Right. You've done both. So you're saying there's a chance for some people. Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Okay.
So people always have like this, I feel like they have this, I feel like people either love or hate me, and they really love me or they like can't stand anything I fucking do and they think everything is annoying. What do you think is like, because not everybody sees the version that you get to see, what do you think is like a common misconception about me?
Good question, Christine. This is why you're the interviewer on this show.
I think that you're hard, like you're tough.
But I feel like people know that.
But no, I mean,
right. But they either love that or they hate it.
I think that's
okay.
a misconception.
Okay,
I don't think
that
you're as tough as the persona that you put on. That's the misconception. It's not that you are.
Yeah, true.
I mean, you are. You've been through a lot, but also like you have a tough shell on.
You know what I think? I think if anybody gets to see the softer side of you, that person is incredibly lucky. Because it also means that you're safe enough for you to be around. So, if anybody sees like the tough side, like they're not wrong, that's what they're seeing, but honestly, like you're not the right person to see the soft side. You don't deserve it. You don't get to see it. So I've seen both. I know I probably haven't seen it near as much as Tony has, but like I've seen it. I've seen your golden retriever side, but I see your feral cat side a lot too. You guys are such a good balance. I love your relationship. I love this. I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your story. And I know you think that there's not anything profound. Well,
that's why I told Christine, I was like, is this going to even be interesting? I don't know the people.
No,
I've loved it.
You're so interesting.
I've loved talking to you.
I'm so happy that I get like some of my favorite people in the same room and we get to have this kind of a conversation. I just want to say that.
I think we should do this more often. I think people think people think you and I hang out all the time. And it's like, no, we've had like one double date with Tony and Jason.
I also don't think that people understand how much of I'm kind of a loner.
Yeah.
And you're very much so an introvert too. So it's like when we do something, it's usually because we're like working or recording or whatever. Yeah. And then I'd go back into my hermit.
Yeah. Your hermit mode.
Shell. Yeah.
All right. We'll come out of it for a date night every now and then.
I would love to.
We'll just come to your house.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Just come to your house so you don't even have to leave your hermit shell.
Yeah.
Can we do that, Tony?
Yeah. He works from home.
Are you inviting me over?
He works from home. He needs to get out.
I like to get out every now and then. So yeah, I don't.
That's Jason too. Yeah, he likes to get out too. Yeah. He's stuck.
So
here.
no, I've enjoyed coming and talking to you guys too. So
yeah,
if people enjoy it, then maybe I'll come back.
Come back after your second journey.
Okay.
Let's talk about that
We'll see.
when you get there. All right. To all of our listeners, Tony does not have a social media.
He does.
Good luck
He
trying to
has
find
17 followers.
I think I have. Well, I don't even think is it 17?
I
Probably more like single digits.
You might get like 20 after this. Yeah. But yeah, so Tony, everybody, Christine's
lover.
soulmate, your twin flame,
Yes.
your zaddy. All right, we'll see you guys on the other side.